What's going on, everybody? This is Black Men Sunday. I'm your host, Corie Murray, a show about generational wealth, wealth in general for Black men.
It's a Black Man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate.
Today, this brother here, when we talk about generational wealth, when we talk about family leadership, when we talk about goals in life, this brother here is a legend in Orange County, in Orlando, from Daytona Beach. This brother here, now, I gotta say it now because you did go to both. So this brother here has a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Bethune. Now, he had to be a bad guy. This man went from Bethune to FAMU, got a master's in education. And then I don't know how he ended up in Gainesville, but he got a doctorate of education from the University of Florida. So this brother went to a couple rival schools and still survived. He also has a Master of Divinity from Colgate Rochester Divinity School. And when we talk about generational wealth, y'all better be ready for this. This brother here is the co-owner of a church, New Covenant Baptist. And when I say a church, this isn't any church. This church has a charter school, K-5 on the property, has Covenant on the Lakes apartments on the property. This brother here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I did my research, I saw you were the NAACP chapter president for Orange County. So welcome this brother to the show, the Reverend Dr. Randolph Bracy Jr. Him and his wife has to be the only people I know where he's got a son that's a junior and the daughter's named after the wife. So welcome him to the show.
Thank you, Corie. Delightful to be with Black Men Sundays. I must admit that a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, other than my wife telling me about this group, I did not know that you existed. But I thank God for the privilege of knowing Corie. Corie is something special, and he's pursued me with a desire that he wanted me to speak to the brethren. I understand that it's a fellowship that crosses several states. In fact, that you are out in some parts of the West, as I understand. But I'm delighted that you've invited me, and I have gone and caught the situation where you interviewed my wife a couple of weeks ago, and I'm delighted to be here.
You in good hands right here, this Black Men Sunday. So, just me doing my research on you, like I said, I dropped your credentials. When I pulled up an article on you, you said that in the article that Bethune-Cookman saved your life and you went to Howard. So let's start right there.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. I'm 77 years old, all right? I was born, I'm pretty sure as I look around the group, I'm the elder statesman, if you will. I was born in 1944 in Duval County. I am a native Floridian. I am an only child. I started school very early. Back in those days, they had what they call skipping. And I started, by that I mean I'm an only child, and I started first grade. I was 4 years old. And then during that time, they had what they call sitters. And there was no intent for me to pass on. I was 4 years old and I turned 5 in my first year. And then I subsequently, at the end of the first grade year, they told me that I had done so well on tests. And please don't think I'm braggadocious by no stretch of the imagination. But I finished first grade at 5, and then I started second grade at 5, and that helped me to the extent that I went from kindergarten through 12th grade, and I graduated from high school at 16. That, in some places, would be a great situation, but that was a bane for me in the sense that I paid for that much of those adolescent puerile days. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, an only child. My parents were uneducated people. My daddy and my mother went no further than the 6th grade, but they wanted to make sure that their one and only son had the exposure to as much as I could. One of the things I was very cavalier, and I'm getting to answer your question about how Bethune-Cookman saved my life. I always was able to do things pretty well in terms of schooling and performance on aptitude tests and that kind of thing. And so I was admitted to Howard at 16 years of age. Fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I was a student that socially I was not ready for. Academically, I was ready, but socially I wasn't ready. And if any of you ever been to Washington, D.C., Howard University, you know anything about Georgia Avenue. Georgia Avenue had that magnetic pull that I wasn't ready for. And I spent the first 3 years of my college career at Howard University. By that time, like I said, I went there at 16. And because of experiences and exposures, I just couldn't handle it socially. And so I was told by the registrar's office, I got a letter, I never shall forget it, in my third year at Howard, said, Mr. Bracy, I think it would be to your behest to leave the university because for all intents and purposes, you are not college material. Maybe a career vocational thrust might be a lot better for you. So there I was kicked out. One of the things for those who are Florida A&M University people, I had, before I went, when at 16 years old, I had a full scholarship given to me by Dr. William P. Foster to be in FAMU's band. I didn't have to pay a dime, but I said, no, I'm going to Howard University. I was going to be a medical doctor, if you will. You know, at that time, there were only two HBCUs with medical schools. That was Meharry and Howard. So I was going to be the medical doctor that was going to turn the world upside down. Now, if you listen to me, and please don't take offense when I said it, I've always had a good self-concept. But I got kicked out of school and they told me that I wasn't college material. And so I tried to reapply for FAMU. FAMU would not accept me, even though they were 3 years earlier, they were going to give me a full scholarship under the incomparable Florida A&M University band. I say that to say that the only school that would accept me after getting kicked out of Howard was Bethune-Cookman. That's how I answer your question, Corie. That's the school that saved my life. Because when I did show up at Bethune 3 years later, some of the people that had graduated with me from high school, what happened? Bracy, they got kicked out of school. He thought he was so much and the like. And it was kind of like a dog with his tail between his legs. My self-esteem was down to zero. But there was something about coming to Bethune-Cookman, and I came by the gravesite on the campus of Bethune-Cookman. They have the grave of Mary McLeod Bethune. And what is so powerful, something electric, magnetized itself in my personality. And it was a place that gave me a sense of personhood. It restored who I was as a person. Some people could say I was very affirmative in my position. Some people could say I was cocky, but I had been knocked for a loop. But then Bethune was a place that restored my self-esteem, that cockiness, if you will. So I did 3 more years. It took me 6 years to finish an undergrad. But one of the things that, and I say this, is that school academics has never been a problem for me, never been. And so I still hadn't gotten to the full of it in the sense that performing to the very best of my ability, I could always take tests and do well on. So I finished Cookman, and this was at the height of the Vietnam War. And so if you were African-American male at that time, this was a time that if you tried your best, you tried to get out of it, because Vietnam was a very scary, very frightening experience for Black males. A number of my classmates from Jacksonville and also from Cookman had gone to Vietnam and come back home in boxes and coffins. And so I tried my best. I taught school in New York. I found a way to get up to teach school. And this was at the time, I know perhaps this is before most of your all's time, but Sidney Poitier, he's your Denzel, was at the height of his game. And he put out a movie called To Serve with Love. And it was a story about this Black Caribbean fellow who taught school in this place in London, one of the places of London. And the title of it, this was and they call it To Serve with Love. They call Sidney Sir. And at that, and what was so powerful about that, that was a time when I was seen kind of like I was 6 feet, I've been 6'2", I was about 175. I've added a little more to my girth since then. But I was at this white school in Long Island, New York, and I stayed there until Uncle Sam caught up with me and they tried their best to put me in the service. Well, long story short, I did 13 months in the United States Navy. And I was able to come out on honorable discharge. And what's so interesting about that, I came back to Jacksonville and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And someone said, you got the GI Bill. Why not go to school? And so I went to Florida, and that's how I got to Florida A&M. And I came there for 1970. And I stayed there for a year and a half. And I really enjoyed most of the fellowships there at FAMU. A number of the professors I knew very well, especially those in the band, from Dr. Julian White and Dr. Sheila James, if you know anything about the Florida A&M band. We were in high school together. So I enjoyed my year at FAMU, a year and a half at FAMU. And then I got my second best job. I did my master's degree. I was but even though I had started late and got kicked out of school, I was roughly 26 years old with my master's walking out of FAMU. And I got this job at an HBCU called Mississippi Valley State University. Well, at that time, it was Mississippi Valley State College. Well, Mississippi Valley State College, if you know anything about the civil rights movement, it's in the heart of the Delta. And if you can imagine, there I am coming to Mississippi Valley State College, University, and this was during the time of student insurrection with students taking over administration buildings and the like. And Mississippi I spent a little better than a year at Mississippi Valley State. And I hope I'm not hurting anyone's feelings on this, but I got to Mississippi Valley State, and there's a culture in Mississippi Valley, especially in the Delta. I was there the previous year, the Black students had taken over the university's administration, and the president of the school had the entire student body locked up in what they call Parchman's Farm. Parchman's Farm is the maximum security, just like Angola is for Louisiana. Parchman's Farm was all of the horrendous stories that you've ever heard about Mississippi. That's where they would do the capital punishment. Well, anyway, when the students decided to take over the administration, the president at that time, it was run almost like a plantation. He had the entire student body, if you can imagine, taken to Parchman's Farm overnight. I was a Florida boy, and I know Florida might have had its problem, but Florida was not nearly as bad as Mississippi. It was a very expansive experience for me in the sense that I was exposed to civil rights. I had the chance to meet a number of civil rights personalities and the like. And that's what set me on my road for strong social justice. By this time, I was given an opportunity to come to the University of Florida because the Black students, which was a very paltry, small amount at the University of Florida, had just taken over the administration building at Florida. And so what happened was they needed someone, a young Black fellow, about 27, that had some higher education experience. And they hired me to be over all of the Black freshmen in 1971. So there I am at the University of Florida. And Florida at that time was making a major change for the acceptance of Black students. And so I was not only brought there, but I was also brought as one of the chief recruiters for the Florida Gator football team. If you can imagine, and I said, I was really loving this. I was really loving this experience in higher education. And so I said to myself, one of the things I found out was that if you're going to do a career in higher education, you have to have the terminal degree. And as a Black man, I don't care how you occupy or whatever, in order to make any kind of ascendancy on the career ladder, especially in higher education, you're going to have the terminal degree. So I then, after 1 year of being over all of the Black freshmen, I decided to pursue my doctorate at the University of Florida. And I have a record now for somebody that got kicked out at Howard. I finished as one of the youngest ever to earn the terminal degree at age 29. I walked out of Florida with my terminal degree. That time, subsequently met the woman of my life that I married, a preacher's daughter. You met my wife, she was in Gainesville. She was the first Black to integrate the public school systems of Alachua County. That's where Gainesville is. And we met, and preacher's daughter, it was the best thing ever happened to me. I'll say that. And subsequently, at age 29, feeling myself, smelling myself, cocky, I was put on the first faculty of the University of North Florida in Jacksonville. I was, like I said, I was feeling myself, smelling myself, and thinking more highly of myself than I ought. But the one thing I did not tell you is that I'm an authentic person of the church. I was born in the church. Church is all I have ever known. And so I thought I wanted to be a college president, especially after finishing the University of Florida. And I was on the first faculty of this brand new university in Jacksonville called University of North Florida. But there was a spirit that was just groaning within me that was telling me this was good, but this was not the place where I wanted to be. And subsequently, my wife, because she's a preacher's daughter, she knew what it's like. And so both of us, so I had earned my terminal degree. She had started hers. Now, don't miss this. She started her terminal degree at Florida. She'd finished the Fisk University. Then she subsequently went to the University of Miami, and she had her doctorate. So there we were, two Black folk, probably 30-something, early 30. But I told her, baby, I came home one day and I said, this is all right, but this is not for me. I want to be a preacher. God has put a calling on my life. So there we were in Jacksonville. Both of us with earned doctorates. We then moved because I had this passion for social justice. And I became enamored with a person called Howard Washington Thurman, who was the mentor to Martin Luther King Jr., one who really enabled and empowered him to really seek the career that changed the world in social justice. Well, guess what? Howard Thurman had gone to Colgate Rochester Divinity School in Rochester, New York. King was associated with that. The social justice preachers that I had a proclivity to be like, we went there. We went to Rochester, and I did 3 more years at this bastion of liberal theology. After 3 years there, my 2 children, my son, who is now a candidate for congressman, and my daughter was born there. We moved. I was called to a Baptist church in Philadelphia, which radically changed my life. And the reason why, when we moved to Philadelphia, we're both Floridians, and we get to Philadelphia, And the church where I'm called, the chairman of my board of deacons will become the first African-American mayor of the city of Philadelphia. Now, imagine here I am, for all intents and purposes, a country boy from Florida. And here I was thrusted right in the middle of major power of at that time, the fourth largest city in America. I stayed there as pastor of the mayor of Philadelphia for slightly under 10 years. But it was a situation where I was in the room with the Vice President of the United States, Walter Mondale. I was put in some big heavy-hitting stuff. And I just thank God because it gave me a perspective on how you really, really do ministry in a big situation. I subsequently, my wife and I, we spent almost 10 years in Philadelphia. I was pastor to the mayor. Everyone in Philadelphia knew me that way. She was in his cabinet. She was over the entire homeless situation in Philadelphia. She was director of homeless. But we had this yearning to get back to Florida. I tell people to this day, the Lord does live in Florida. There's something beautiful. I wouldn't say, especially if you've seen the weather report today. Some of my best friends today living in 40, and even in Detroit, they were less than 10 today. And do you know what it was like today in sunny Orlando? 85, and it had gone up to 87. So I knew we had to get back to Florida. Plus, there's something about Florida that we wanted our children to be exposed to. So what happened? I was called to this church. This was the most historic church in the city of Orlando. But I remember I had been engaged in this whole thing of social change and the like, and I was called as pastor of this historic church. But the Lord has put in me a spirit of maverick in the sense that I have this sense of wanting to be beyond just the box, of doing just what's the parameters of what a box puts you on. So I spent there 1 year and that didn't work out. And so me and my wife, we were able to start a church from scratch, literally with nothing. When we started, 300 of the members, 289 from the former church left and followed us. They followed this preacher. I'm 40-something now. And they decided, well, maybe he has something. So we started that church. My wife and I founded this church in 1992. We retired in 2013. Again, we didn't have anything. We left with the total assets of approximately $20+ million. We had, as Corie had said, we had done, we became a model for Florida, for a church, if you can imagine. We started in 1992, and in 1996, we were marching into a brand new building that we had started. Prior to that, I did a summer at Harvard, at the Harvard Divinity School. And it was a great experience because they wanted to see what we were doing and why were we so successful in such a short time. Well, the Lord just blessed us. And we were just blessed and the like. Like I said, with my wife and I, we did 20-some years there at that church. And the assets totally was, and it's paid for to today as the like, was over $20 million, starting with zero. I say that I also now, with my background, I'm presently retired. I retired, but I also am now I'm dean. I was given the charge of formulating a school of religion almost 7 years ago. We were able to get that done. We were certified by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. And God has just blessed us from literally very parsimonious beginnings to where we are today. And so I'm thankful as I looked at this Black men in worship and you're asking me after you had asked my wife to join you. I'm just delighted. I wanted to kind of just give you a capsule of who I am and the like. God has blessed us. God has blessed me, especially as a pastor, with a model that we believe is a model for the nation in terms of a Black man doing ministry.
So that's a great setup because, I've got a couple brothers that want to ask a couple questions. You mentioned New Covenant Baptist Church, and just for the brothers that are out of town, we're talking 30,000 square foot church. Like Dr. Brace, his wife said on episode 4, they bought lakefront property. Keep in mind, brothers, this is Black Men Sunday. Like I said, this is a show about generational wealth. Go ahead, Commissioner Scott.
Hey, how you doing, Dr. Brace? It's a pleasure to meet you. Yeah, I had a couple of questions. I'm gonna just get one in for now. What's the process of actually purchasing and owning the church? Is it considered commercial real estate or is it not commercial real estate?
Irony of all ironies, when we started, we didn't know what we were doing. All the thing that we had going for us, that both of us came from strong religious families. My wife's father, graduate of Florida Memorial College and now University in Miami, but also was a graduate of Howard Divinity School. And one of the things he was able to do was to change Gainesville. And he allowed us to oversee what he was doing. And so what we were able to do was to be able to think outside the box. And I must admit, several of my European brothers felt a need to help me. And for instance, Black church, if you can imagine, as Corie mentioned, here we are, a Black church in the downtown, near the downtown edges of Orlando with waterfront property on one of the most gorgeous pieces of property in Orlando. But not only that, we purchased over, in the first few years of our ministry, 24 acres of waterfront property and the like. One of the things I went to a summer symposium at Harvard Divinity School that really opened up my eyes about the value of a nonprofit in concert with a profit and how you work that to the advantage of the church. So it was, we had our Community Development Corporation, which was the conduit for purchasing that ground. And like I said, when I walked away from it as a retiree 20 years later, it was worth over $20 million in corporate assets.
Man, I'm gonna do a little research because I want to possibly do the same thing one day. So thanks again for information, Dr. Brace.
I'm just proud of what I see, just a little I know superficially about Black Men Sunday. And the whole idea of empowerment. I had some great mentors that did some humongous things as it relates to Black church and empowerment. I don't know if you're familiar with the AME church up in New York, where Floyd Flake pastored for many years. Well, they had a corporate worth of well over $100 million. But he was able to do this by using and creating a number of CDCs that had different focuses. For instance, a focus on housing, a focus on economic development, a focus, they had all of these CDCs that was under the corporate influence of the church, where the church was the major thrust. And he had a corporate, I'm talking about a good 10, 15 years ago, they had a corporate worth of well over $100 million.
And like I said, this brother here is a definite, with a reverend doctor here, got to give him his respect, is the example of generational wealth. So moving forward a little bit, Dr. Bracy, give, brothers on here, there's homeowners on here, there's business owners on here. There's a brother on here actually owns his own law firm out of Tampa Bay. There's brothers on here that have done well, selling stock, selling crypto, bought property. So brothers on here are doing pretty well, you know what I mean? But there's a few brothers where they're still trying to get it together. They're still trying to purchase their first property. So that's where I wanted to ask my next question. There's brothers that I talk to on a daily basis. They all say, well, not they all, but a few of the younger brothers say, listen, I have stocks, I have Robinhood, I have Fidelity. I don't need to own the roof over my head. I don't need to own property to generate generational wealth. What do you say to that, Reverend Bracy?
Well, I'll put it this way. We could not have moved as quickly or as fast as we could have, as we did, if we did not have the acquisition of land or real estate. Remember now, when we first started, we purchased, the first thing out of the box, we purchased 10 acres of real estate property at $190,000. We were able to use that as a leverage when we started having plans about a building and the like. You can, you say what you will of me, but the old-fashioned way is real estate. And to be able to do what we were able to do as a church, we had to have the leverage of owning ground. Now that might sound so archaic and the like, but boy, when you own ground, it make the strangest thing that was that banks came looking for us because you know what they were saying? There's this black church that owns 10 acres of ground. Now, please don't get me wrong when I say this, make this point. Now, we're talking about almost 30 years ago, and how many black churches, no building, no nothing, own 10 acres of ground? That's the first of all. And real estate in one of the most desirable locations in all of America, Orlando, Florida. Shortly after that, we came to the table and was about to do the deal for closing out on the 10 acres of ground for $190,000. And one of the fellows said, well, I got 7 more acres that I'm willing to sell you, when he saw that these black folk were serious about doing the deal. But now he saw that we were able to not only pay for it, but now maybe these black folk were serious. Again, when you're talking about leverage with banks, well, guess what? We then purchased another seven acres, meaning that at the culmination of that time, we had 17 acres of ground that we didn't own, that we owed. We owned, I mean. And what that meant was, guess what? Banks, the word was on the street, this black church got some ground that they own. So my point was we were able to literally back into the situation and finance the church. And we marched into a brand new church in 4 years after starting with nothing. So for those that talk about, I guess, don't get me wrong, I'm still researching Bitcoin, and I know this is the thing with this generation. But I guess I'm dealing with it the old-fashioned way. Nothing beats real estate and ground. And one of the things that I have seen over and over again, we as people of color, men of color, need to understand that how you got the ground, you can do a whole lot of leveraging in terms of the financial arena.
Well, I definitely got a quick question because Dr. Bracy, it sounds like what you were saying is that, okay, even if young people may not be in a position in life, settle down and buy residence, they can still possibly invest in property and getting land so they can have leverage for buying power for other things, right? So maybe if you want to buy a house, but you're still buying real estate, but buy some land. Because when I was younger, I was kind of moving around trying to figure out where I wanted to be at. But, I was taking the option of buying some land. It was about 2 acres. It was close to a commercial development. So, I mean, that's something that young people can think about as well, I guess. Just to, like you say, get the land, get the leverage, right?
Now think about this. In 4 years, we started out with 0. 4 years from the day we started, literally, we marched into a building, a 30,000 square foot state-of-the-art building. And what gave us the edge? What gave us the wherewithal with banks? We owned the ground. We could not have done what we did in such a short time had we not owned the ground.
Okay. Got you. I'm taking note. Let the young cats know that go and buy you some land when you can. You got the finances, you got the credit straight. Just go ahead and get in the game early because it'll set you up in the long run. My quick question: I'm actually in school right now. I got 18 credits left before getting a doctorate. Now I kind of contemplated: should I go and finish and get a doctorate, or do I got enough education to do what I need to do? Blah blah blah. Because I started a business up. Do you have any advice for becoming an eventual dean or president of a university? Because that's going to be what my goal is.
Well, let me tell you what is ironic. When I walked out of the University of Florida at age 29 with my doctorate, and I think I could say this among the brethren, I was smelling at myself. I was cocky, Doug. I was feeling it. Doug, okay. All right. And in the back of my mind, I remember I got kicked out of Howard. Okay. I was going to want to show them something, what they missed when they let me go. Right. As an undergrad. But I matured. I thank God for higher education. But one of the things I thank God to be a pastor, I've been a pastor now going on 40-some years. Okay. And one of the things that I love is the fact that I'm the pastor of a Baptist church. And one of the things that helped me, I said something earlier about having a maverick spirit. And what I meant by that is that, Doc, I want to do what I want to do. And when the Lord has just given me a plan, I'm going to do it. And what that meant was that I changed block. And in retrospect, one of the best things that ever happened, I did not become president, all right? But I was able to, for instance, and don't get me wrong when I say this, but you come to Orlando and the name Bracy means something. You don't do anything. Given my experiences in Philadelphia, working with the first Black mayor of the city of Philadelphia, understanding the process, guess what? I was able to take those learnings from a Philadelphia and bring them to an Orlando. And to parlay that and to bring those things into play on how do you really make an dent in terms of a city. And in the 25, 30 years that I've been, guess what? I have a reputation that better than I could have ever had as a president, all right? Because they would, please, and I have to, please, I just am getting to know you, brother, so I don't want to come across as a pious person. But I was blessed, and you didn't make a decision as it relates to Black folk in Orlando if you didn't come by me. Okay. But I want you to understand, I'm just so sad. I'm so thankful and grateful to God that He put me in a situation where I learned. I learned from some of the best minds in Philadelphia. But guess what? I came home to Florida and to understand the whole political process, to understand how do you make a difference?
Great information.
Gotcha.
When you talk about power leverages, I thank God that, what does Reverend Bracy think? That might be on the first level of any congresswoman, man, or mayor. What does Reverend Bracy think? Fortunately, I got a wife who keeps me mellow and the like. But one of the things we wanted to do was to make a difference. Some of you might remember there used to be a program on TV called Dynasty. I have Corie made some statement earlier. We have my son carries my name. My daughter carries my wife's name, which is very unusual. But guess what? We are talking about leaving a legacy. I told you earlier that I'm 77, I'll be 78 years old. Okay. The Lord has blessed me, and guess what? I want to leave a legacy for the coming generation. That when I'm dead and gone, they say, oh, man, did you see what they did? And as a Black man, I'm fiercely excited about leaving a legacy for the generations to come.
Well, one thing I heard you just say is that you constantly sought mentors. So I guess, I can tell you have a level of humility that allows you to keep growing no matter what level you're on. So it's important for people to really understand that, people know stuff, right? You can learn stuff in books as well. But people don't know how to get stuff done. They have to do experience. And it's great to hear that a person of your caliber still was able to seek out the right mentors and bring that knowledge back home. So that's awesome to hear that.
Commissioner, let me tell you what, I'm in the best position of my life now. I'm a dean. I'm given the charge of putting the dean of a school of religion. And I have millennials and Generation Zs. And boy, and there is a 50-year gap between them and me. But I'm so excited about, they call me Pops. And they come around, Pops, well, what do you think about this? Pops, what do you think about that? I'm delighted that they want to find out what an old man would know where they are and what these are the kinds of situations. So Pops, they got, and they still do on during a weekly basis. I got so many young, pardon the expression, I know it's coeducational and like, but young Black men want to know from a 70-year-old, a septuagenarian, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Young preachers are going into the ministry. How do I make a difference? You made a difference. What can I do? What can I learn? This is the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Let's talk about, you were the president of the Orange County branch of the NAACP. We had your wife on episode 4, Dr. LaVon Bracy, and one thing big to her was voting. So I would like to touch on voting. I would like for you to touch on critical race theory while we have you on here. And I would like for you to just touch on how you got involved and what made you become chapter president of the NAACP, brother.
First of all, my father and my mother, as I told you earlier, they didn't go any further than the 6th grade. But the Lord blessed them to be entrepreneurs in the sense that my daddy owned his own barbershop, and my mother owned her own beauty shop. And we were located right on the campus, right on the campus of Edward Waters College in Jacksonville. In my senior year in high school, Martin Luther King Jr. came to visit my high school. Remember now, I went from elementary school to 3 years at Howard, 3 years at Bethune-Cookman, 2 years at FAMU, and never sat in a class with a Caucasian. So I was fiercely. My father was a strong champion of social justice. And so I never shall forget, I was in 12th grade and Martin Luther King Jr. came to Jacksonville to speak at the Mount Airy Baptist Church. And my daddy insisted, well, I was not that into it, but because my daddy said that, my daddy, a Black man that didn't take tea for the fever, told me I had to go, I went. I say that to say that I slowly but surely developed a fierce thing for social justice issues. I tell this story when I went to Howard University, and in my 3rd year, I lived in this dormitory, and guess who lived right across the hall from me? Stokely Carmichael. Stokely Carmichael, they call him Teray before he
Wow.
died. Okay, Stokely now I'm from Florida. Now, Stokely had come from the Caribbean, but he lived in New York. I think it was Jamaica. Anyway, we had this standing joke because I was from the South. Stokely would always call me country boy. Always, y'all Florida boy ain't nothing but country boys in the like. And I never shall forget that he went to Mississippi for a summer and he came back. Well, if you look at my head now, I never had that much hair. I had what they call a Flip Wilson Quo Vadis at the time. Well, anyway, Stokely went to Mississippi and came back with an afro out the head. And we living in the dorm, he's right across the hall. And so I said to him, Negro, what in the world? What you doing all that hair? Why don't you go comb your hair, man? One reason I couldn't grow that much hair. But anyway, I say that, but we had that kind of banter back and forth that he respected me and I respected him, and we became fond of each other. Well, I say that to say that slowly but surely, I began to develop this thing on social justice. And my dad had since said, put me into the NAACP and the like. And I came along during the time of when Emmett Bobo Till was lynched from Money, Mississippi. I'm talking about 1955. And so I'm a part of that era. And I never shall forget coming home. And once I got into Philadelphia and was pastor to the mayor, I saw the power that the Black church could make in terms of voting. Before he became mayor, he was what they call managing director of the city of Philadelphia. And he was able, and he took me along, and I asked him, I said, Mayor Good, his name was W. Wilson Good. His name is W, he's still alive. And I said, would you just take me with you so I can just learn? Well, I saw power. I saw the power of Negro politics or Black politics. I saw the power of the vote. I saw how they had never had a Black to become mayor, and the Black church and this political leverage was able to put the first African-American mayor into the fourth largest city in the nation. I say that to say it's been a growth with me. And like I said, my wife, when she was in his cabinet, and I saw power politics at its best. And so there we come to Orlando. The Lord just opened up a way for me. Oh God, let's make this thing happen. And so when Barack Obama came to Florida, he was a senator at the time. And he said, I need to meet some of the Black preachers. The Lord had put me in a position, said, you need to talk with Bracy. And it was the strangest thing that ever happened. Me and my wife had 30 uninterrupted minutes with Senator Barack Obama, who was doing a feeler campaign. Because at that time, the word was, if you win Florida, you could win the presidency of the United States. The key for winning Florida politically goes from what they call the I-4 corridor, which stretches from Tampa, St. Pete, across the middle of Florida to Daytona Beach. Long story short, my wife and I had a 30-minute uninterrupted conversation with Barack Obama, and we made a commitment that we would see to it that he becomes president of the United States of America. The point was, he was dead on when he said, if you win Florida, if you win the I-4 corridor, you win the state of Florida. Guess what? She was instrumental in registering votes, so much so that when he was accepting the nomination in Denver, Colorado, he cited my wife for the kinds of work that she did. And I subsequently did in tandem with her in the NAACP. One of the things I found out is if we do this thing right and do it under the auspices of Christianity, especially, I think we can turn what seems like a very formidable situation around by doing voter registration and education. That's a long, convoluted answer to a short question.
So what, as a Black man, can we do these days to where we can secure? Because my thing is, we talking about generational wealth, but when we look at Black men over the last 10 years of home ownership, we're 10-1, meaning with other races. So I feel like, when I talk to a bunch of elders, they say, you talk about generational wealth, but as a Black man, we're used to generational poverty. So what do you say to that?
First of all, let me put it this way. White America is, and I'm making a broad brush when I say what I say, they're scared to death. The 2045 predictions of the US Census says that by 2045, this nation will have dramatically shift from Anglo to predominantly majority Brown and Black. This is a very frightening thing if you're a European of descent. That's frightening. And there's a biblical story that I use when I talk about this thing of what they're doing now with critical race theory. There's in the Old Testament the story of Daniel when there was a king called Belshazzar. They had taken over the children of God. And while they were having a big party, and while they were having this big party, a hand appeared out of nowhere and began to write on the wall. And it shook everybody up, those that were oppressing the people of God. What does that have to do with this day and time? What you have now is that the vast majority of Europeans have started instituting such things as critical race theory because they are fearful, they are scared that if the truth be told, and it's just a matter, all I have to do is just tell the story of how we as people and our ancestors have borne their burden in the heat of the day. They talk about such things as 1619, about Hannah Jones, and the story she tells about in Port Comfort, Virginia. The point is, they know, and I'm saying they, I'm talking those that are the perpetrators of critical race theories. They're trying to find every little bit that they can to distract and deter, especially here in the state of Florida. We have a governor who is riding her, trying everything he can. And he has recently, my son is a part of the Florida State Legislature. They have just embraced this whole thing of teaching critical race theory so that teachers will be afraid to teach about the truth. Well, the Bible says that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. They cannot stop an idea whose time has come. Yes, they're coming up with all of these things of critical race theory, but the reality is that these, I think, are the last ditch gasping efforts of a people who know that they're defeated. And so I hear it. They talk about don't want to make people uncomfortable. And come on, let me just put it this way. It's time for us as people of color to make the uncomfortable, get them to understand that this is serious business. We're going to tell the story. Too many of our ancestors have died and borne their burden in the heat of the day so that we can enjoy these liberties. And I don't believe we're going to go back. I think we're going to fight it, and we're going to fight it. And the reality is, it's the truth. How you going to hide the truth? And I'm praying for this generation. If we get out and do what we're supposed to do, we can make a difference. We can make a difference. And so I just believe that this critical race theory is just nothing more than a way of just trying to thwart and disrupt the inevitable. They see the handwriting on the wall. They see it coming. And that's why they're doing all these things to put in place. But the reality, you cannot ignore how this country, I did a paper on reparations very recently, and I talked about every last major university, from the Harvard, the Yales, the Princetons, the Georgetowns, they are living off of the efforts and energies of our ancestors. You know about the richest school in the world, the Harvard University. Guess what? Go look at their portfolio. They're there because of what they did to our ancestors. So critical race theory, do I make you uncomfortable? I hope to make you even more uncomfortable. You're getting the preacher part of me now.
Well, I love it. I love it. You know, let's stay there for a sec, because we had your wife 2 shows ago, and she said, when I asked her the critical race theory question, I just want you to comment on this. I asked her thoughts on critical race theory. She said, she told me one statement. She said, with critical race theory, I can't tell my story.
Well, just today, I just preach this morning from a book called Judges. And it's an interesting story in the book of Judges. And it talks about the fact that after Joshua and his generation had died, the part of the text says, a new generation arose who knew not the Lord or the great things that he had done in Israel. And I say that to say that my subject was, we must tell our story. My wife talks about the fact of going through St. Augustine and having to deal with the slave markets of St. Augustine, and then going from there to being the first Black to finish Gainesville High. But even before that, she tells in her story, her book, about having confronted the Klan as a child. Okay, and the point she was saying, the reason why she wrote her book, she said, I must tell my story, because if I don't tell my story, other people will tell it, and they will not tell it like I will tell it. And it's responsible for us, those who know better. Again, I take pardonable pride in the fact I went from kindergarten to elementary to junior high school to senior high school to 3 years at Howard University, 3 years at Bethune-Cookman, 2 years at Florida A&M, and never sat in a class with a Caucasian. I know Jim Crow and segregation firsthand, and it's my responsibility to tell you, yeah, I take pardonable pride in the fact that, yeah, at age 29, I got my doctorate from Florida, but the greatest part of my life was with Black folk. I love the fellowship of our communion that I tell anyone, I would not take anything for my experiences at an HBCU. Corie, did you go to FAMU?
Yes,
FAMU?
sir. Oh, yes, sir. FAMU.
Let me just
yes.
tell you something. Let me tell you, until you've been to a FAMU homecoming, the only thing that beats a FAMU homecoming is a Howard University homecoming.
Oh, don't do that.
There's something about that.
Don't do that. Oh.
I've been on both, but don't miss my point. I've been at the University of Florida where they have, and I can compare all those three institutions. FAMU's homecoming is at the top of the list. And only at the HBCU, if you haven't been to HBCU, you're missing part of the grace of God. Oh, I know I said something there. Yeah. And so the fellowship, there's something that happens when people of color come together like that. And so I didn't mean, I just inserted that for you. So but I know since you said FAMU, you had to spend a couple of years doing homecoming. And there's nothing like it. Be out there at Bragg Stadium and sitting on the lawn. Oh, come. And they could never give you that at the University of Florida Gainesville. I'm not telling you what I think, I'm telling you what I know.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I've never heard UF having a set now.
Oh, yeah, you know the deal.
Yeah, Dr. Bracy. Yeah, well, we got the Reverend speaking also. I just got a question. So I noticed some of our counterparts, when I was younger, around 24, 25, as soon as they were getting out of college, they were getting married, settling down. And to me, it just seemed like they started building wealth together with their wives earlier, right? Some of us, I got married really late because it really wasn't, I wasn't focused on that. But I felt like maybe I should have settled down a little earlier, had the mindset, and I think I could have started generating my wealth a little bit earlier. Would you have any comments to some of the younger people, some of our younger people, as far as having that mindset to stop being a playboy or playgirl and kind of settle down and look for your true mate?
Let me tell you, now this is going to sound like an off-the-wall story, but a lot of it comes with your maturity. Sometimes when I talk with some of the 20-somethings today, they're very mature, and then some of them are just off the chain in terms of the immaturity. And I have to come with the old cliche about 20-something does what 20-something does. And a lot depends upon the personality. But let me tell you something I was pastoring in Philadelphia, and my children were in a part of the Philadelphia public school system. And I never shall forget, I went to find out what I should get them for Christmas. And I went by the computer instructor in FAMU, in Philadelphia. And at that time, Philadelphia's business community, and I'm making a broad brush when I said it, was completely MS-DOS. And I was introduced, this was the middle 80s going into 90, and the Philadelphia school system was all Apple. And I never shall forget, I met Bill Gates He was at I think at LaSalle University in Philly. But at the time, he was considering moving MS-DOS to Windows. But meanwhile, Apple had already gotten this point and click down to a science. So Windows was trying to catch on. And the point I made was, and I tease my wife to this day, I tease her to this day, baby, if I had invested the money that I saw Apple do at that time, I could buy the city of Orlando. I mean, lock, stock, and barrel. And the point, I say all of that, Commissioner Scott, to talk about, a lot of it has to do with maturity. When you're ready for some things you're ready for, and some things you're just not ready for. I tell my wife, girl, do you know what, if I just had $10,000 to invest in Apple then, do you know what that would be? They would put me on the Federal Reserve. And I say that facetiously, but the point I make is that, and so my thing for young Black men, especially dealing with that, be open to all kinds of things. Like, for instance, like I told someone earlier, mentioned Bitcoin. I don't know a whole lot about Bitcoin, but I know enough of the people I respect getting into Bitcoin big time. And so what do I need? I need to do my research. You're not gonna make a whole lot of money working on these jobs now, because ultimately you're not gonna get rich working on a job. But being able to explore and to expand your thinking beyond just the normal borders. You might make some mistakes. And who knows, many times we've lost our shirts on things. But guess what? Do you want to spend 40 years working for that same job? That's one thing I'm also noticing. People are not staying on jobs forever. This generation, this hip hop generation, no, they don't stay for. Whereas my generation or my parents' generation stayed for 40 years in a gold watch. No. That era has passed. And so I say all of that to say, to be open to the new things. Do your research, do your reading. One thing I thank God for is the ability to read. And as a Black man, I stay up on that. I might not have the money that I wish I had, but God, stuff ain't gonna pass me by. And so, simply put, I just the idea of doing your research and coming to the conclusion, unless you want to be satisfied to be on that job and to get your gold watch, no. But let's look beyond those borders.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So what I wanted you to touch on, first off, Commissioner Scott and a few other brothers listened to the show last week. And them brothers said you were a beast, bro. So I got to commend you on that. And they haven't even heard the great debate yet. They've only heard the first show. So any comments on that so far, Lynn?
Oh, no. First, I just appreciate the brothers sharing this experience and this knowledge base. And I found it really interesting because, I live in Philly myself. So just his background and what he was talking about, some of the Philly experience, I appreciate. I guess one thing I say just from what he spoke on, I think humbly that we can all look at is, I correct him on one thing, is leverage. Like he said, it's old and he said it's archaic. It is old. It's from the archaic times, but it's just as useful then as it is now. And that's probably the one thing that we could all definitely learn from him. Just like he's talking about how he bought that land and was able to leverage that and use that to build up another revenue stream and work that to get the building for the church. We have those same opportunities out here, just like we're talking, just like he's saying, educate yourself, learn about things. That way you could leverage your knowledge in order to find another way to make money or make more money with the money that you have. So I think that idea of leverage is timeless, and that we could all definitely use that because he like he said, he took an opportunity. He learned some things while he was in Philly. He took that back to his hometown. He looked at the lay of the land and he applied what he learned. And like he said, $20 million later, that is a phenomenal story to me. It's definitely inspiring to me.
Yeah. And also, Lynn, because you basically the crypto expert on here, he said, he don't know a lot about Bitcoin. Lynn, he old school. So what's your comment on that?
Well, I think again, back to the point of leverage. Again, it's just a matter of technology, and like he was saying, there's tried and true ways of making wealth that we know that's been around a little longer, and then there's newer ways, and this is a newer avenue for investing. I think it's in a lot of ways it's a deflationary asset, although it doesn't exist in the physical world, although it's based on a software in the technological world. Because of the way it's built and designed, it can serve as a hedge or a leverage against our fiat money system, like the dollar system in and of itself. One of the things you probably know and you're aware of is, why we do invest and we need to invest is the fundamental value of our dollars constantly declining. And kind of where these crypto spaces are coming out, where crypto's coming out is kind of leveraging the technology model and leveraging the accounting system that blockchain is developing to kind of go away from the old model of banks, needing banks as an intermediary between peer-to-peer. For example, Corie or me or you, just like you bought that building where Ethereum stands in. For example, let's take real estate as a process. One of the reasons why I like Ethereum, and I think you would like crypto for Ethereum, of this. In your dealings and your pastime, everything is based on contracts. Everything's based on insurance and contracts, and how ownership and money is transferred for different deals and different transactions. From buying equipment to renting services to maintaining a property on a building to acquiring other properties. Where blockchain and Ethereum give a great opportunity, I think a good amount of wealth is going to be grown is their use and adoption of smart contracts. Just like all of those transactions we're talking about, they all have intermediaries. And those intermediaries raise the cost of doing business. You buying properties, you got to worry about closing costs. You got to worry about titling costs, deed transfer fees, and what have you. By adapting with some of these cryptos that are coming out, especially on the Ethereum network, they're going to be able to do those transfers without the intermediary of that titling company, banking service. A person willing to buy the property is going to be able to put their capital up, and the people selling the property are going to be able to encode the deed into that transaction, and those transfer fees really will dwindle. And that's where I think a lot of the cryptos have an opportunity in the transfer of ownership in the future, where Ethereum mainly. And again, Bitcoin, because of its fixed supply. That's the main thing I think is always undersold with the people that you might even say that you respect that are getting into Bitcoin, is that it has a fixed and finite supply, and our dollars do not. And one of the things you definitely learned with buying land, like you said, you bought acres, and albeit there wasn't anything developed on those acres, but land is scarce. They're not making any new land. So even just like you said, it was waterfront property in Orlando. It hadn't been developed or anything, but you could see that in time, that undeveloped land that was just sitting there empty, that would develop to be worth more than what it is. And that's kind of where I see Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Great commentary. Any thoughts on that, Reverend Bracy, before we let you go?
Man, Commissioner Scott, I didn't need to talk with you, man. I need, at this stage of life, I want my universe to be expanded. And too many people that I value their opinions are just talking about it over and over again. And I don't want to miss it like I miss Apple. Okay.
Oh, it sounds like you need to join us on Black Man Sunday on Sundays. Because my man, because we're not playing over here. We're trying to get the bar. Listen, we're trying to tell people you don't have, after listening to Black Man Sundays, you don't have an excuse on why you're not where you want to be in life or wealth. If you're not there, just, it's on you at this point, because it's too many open doors. It's too many people that can get you where you need to be. And there's brothers on this show, like my man Ed here. He's hey Ed, where you at, man? This brother here owns his own law firm. This brother went to the Florida State Law School. Ed, where you at, man? Don't make me look bad,
right
brother.
Here.
Okay,
I'm right here.
I got to pass on the line. I'm bigging you up. You lucky I ain't tell him. The only thing I don't like about Ed, Reverend Bracy, is he tried to take my girlfriend at FAMU.
Oh, okay. What's his name?
But besides that,
him.
yeah, but besides that, he's been a good dude. He's like I said, he's a FAMU undergrad, Florida State Law School. Matter of fact, my second job out of college. I'm working in Tampa Bay. They had me working on this. I had to come. I'm like, I don't want to work on no Saturday. They had me working 8 a.m. Saturday morning. And who do I see? The public defender. I see my brother Ed. And that's when I said, now this brother went from public defender, owns his own law firm. So Reverend Bracy, what advice would you give this brother? This brother's LLC, business owner, black man, law in Tampa Bay, Florida.
Now, this might sound, well, I'll put it this way. Florida is where it's at right now. And if we can change some things politically, this is a new frontier. This is a new frontier. Just yesterday, day before yesterday, they must have set up 5 or 6 satellites to explore new horizons. Doc, I think your generation, Corie and Ed and Commissioner Scott, you are on the cutting edge of what it could mean for Black empowerment. You have a new paradigm that's presenting itself to you. Just the mutual exchange, like what you say, Black Men Sundays, these kinds of things can go a long ways for empowerment for Black people for the 21st century. Financially, I think you're on the cutting edge of a new frontier.
Well, sir, we really appreciate you. I appreciate you, like especially what you said about CRT and just the wealth of knowledge you provided. You know, I put myself back there when you were describing yourself, you know, talking with, you know, Stokely Carmichael, and when you made that move from Philadelphia to Florida, you know, I try to imagine what that was like. So, you know, thank you for the perspective and thank you for your time.
Enjoyed it. Be blessed, friends.
Any other questions before we let the pastor? I got one last question to close it on a very serious and sensitive note, but Commissioner Scott is unmuted. Anybody else have any other things? If not, go ahead, Commissioner Scott. I just want to say
thanks for sharing your time with us. Thanks, Corie, again, for inviting me initially to the show. I'm learning so much. On Sundays, I feel like I can grow and not necessarily just do the research to grow, but just ask to talk to the experts like Dr. Bracy and Mr. Lynn. Also, listened to your podcast last week. Took several notes. Probably be hitting you up because, man, you got a lot of wealth and knowledge. But thank you again, Dr. Bracy, and just thanks for blessing us with your presence.
Carry on, friend.
Appreciate that, bro.
Dr. Bracy, before I let you go, you know, as a pastor, I want to touch on this one topic that I talked to you privately about, is that I see a lot of brothers that, you know, have a lot of kids. The job hasn't been good to them. You know, they, you know, have a lot of struggles. And then when they're in these struggle points, they tell me straight up, why should I believe in God? What has he done for me? I've been struggling for the last 10 years. I have 5 kids now. Every job I get on, I have for a couple months, then they get rid of me and I'm back to square one. But what has the Lord done for me? And I feel like as Black men, when things are going good, you hear brothers talking about praying and things, but when things aren't going great, it's like they go against the grain. So before I let you go, I just would love for you to expound on this topic for us, because I feel like that's happening too much, that the church, because back, you know, when my grandmother used to talk to me, the church was a place where it wasn't just a church, it was a school, it was community leaders there, it was, you know, it was a wealth of knowledge going on, so where it was taken very seriously. But nowadays, I don't feel like the respect level of history, the respect level of churches, and the respect level of praising God is not where it used to be.
I'll agree. As a pastor, one of the things I deal with quite frequently with the Generation Z, but even before your generation, it's almost like what Martin Luther King asked, where do we go from here? Because the reality is the church that it once was, in terms of your mama, your grandmama, that kind of thing, new situations, new paradigms have emerged that it's not your mama's church anymore. There's so many other ways that people find for solace in the life. But I think that the pandemic has forced us to really do some serious evaluation. Where do we go on the other side? Once this thing, and God knows, I believe that it's coming to a close. Where do we go? What will the church be? And I'm asking this rhetorically. For the 21st century and beyond the pandemic, where it provided, like you said, colleges. Everyone, if you went to an HBCU, guess what? 9 times out of 10, they started out of the church. It provided the avenue of support for people fledgling coming out of slavery and the like. But now you're in a different iteration, if you will. And so what does the church do? And one of the things I'm teaching young men and women, how are you going to deal with this 21st century church? Because their needs are different, but they're very similarities. And so that's an ongoing discussion. I don't have the answer, but let me tell you what, I put it before all of my students. You're going to be going out into the field. How are you going to deal with it? And I usually deal with it. There's a hymn that if you're ever in a part of the church that came out back in the 1800s, that I think is very applicable for today. And the title of this it says, "To serve this present age, my calling to fulfill. Omit all my powers engaged to do my master's will." We serve a different age now. But how do we deal, especially as men of color? How do we provide the leadership because let me tell you, people are in terms of church, people are not coming to the building like they once. And I doubt very seriously they ever come back in the droves and numbers that they did in, say, your mother's era. I doubt very seriously. So, but how do you meet how do you serve this present age? And so I really think it's incumbent upon us, moving beyond the pandemic to the present. How do we deal with the 21st century? How do we deal with, as people of color, how do we deal with these people who don't look like us, who are determined to turn back the clock, who are determined to do us in as people of color? How do we come up with strategies that will help us to serve this present age? And so I answering your question by not answering your question, but I want you to know it's an ongoing discussion. If any viable HBCU, especially that has a seminar or a theological, they're asking this question: how do we really deal with this present age and moving them beyond the status quo? Because guess what? The proponents of critical race theory, they are determined because they see the handwriting and they're scared. They're scared that all of this is, and then people are playing upon the fears of these people. So as ministers, how do I cultivate people, brothers especially, who are trying to figure out, I heard your point, your thing about losing a job and the like. Well, what has God done for me? And sometimes the old platitudes don't work like they used to. He was your mama's help back, but guess what? It's real to you when you lost your job and you don't have anything to feed your children with and the like. So I did all around. Now you can tell I'm a preacher because I go around Robbins Bond to say nothing and trying to answer your question. But I think it demands a serious dialogue beyond the pandemic as to how we're going to deal with this, especially the place of the church for the 21st century. And I want to final thing, I'm understanding financially they're doing well. Most churches are doing well, but how do we deal with the vast majority of men of color, women of color, and given the kinds of things that impact upon us today? So I answered your question by not answering your question.
I mean, I was born in 79, so I'm not that old, but the church was an integral part of life. Grandmother, mom, aunts was all raised in the church, so I was raised in it. So it was just, you know, but you know, my generation, we had history, we had civics. A lot of these kids, when you talk to them now, they don't take history, they don't take civics. So, you know, like they say, if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. Get rid of critical race theory on top of that, you basically a zombie, you know, with technology in your hands, but you don't know who you are as a people until you do your research. So that was my premonition for asking that question. And you know, before I wrap this up, I just want to thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy man. This man's a dean, reverend. You know, I appreciate you having time for us on Black Men Sundays. And I appreciate your knowledge. I mean, I learned some stuff today, you know, besides my research I did on you to be able to properly introduce you. I had no idea you knew Stokely Carmichael. Wow, that blew me away. I can't wait to go back and play this again and listen. So, but you know, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on Black Men Sunday, because like we say every Sunday, ain't no Sunday like a Black Men Sundays with an S, because we do this every Sunday. We bring the heat. We talking about generational wealth. This brother, 30,000 square foot church, waterfront property. This brother went to FAMU, Bethune, and Florida. So, you know, you got to be a bad boy to go all three of them, because most cats, if you went to FAM, then you go to Bethune, you're going to have some problems. Then you became a Gator after all that. What? So I'm just saying, I got to commend you on that. I had to mess with you from the jump a little bit. When I saw your resume, I said, this dude he really went to all those schools. And then, you know, the one thing that I didn't mention, you know, when we talk about Oxford, you know, Oxford, England, you know, one thing I didn't mention, I just want to big you up on. This brother here presented a paper at the Oxford Roundtable on Religion, Education, and the Role on Government, entitled When the Truth is Told, Educational Vouchers Are a Sham. This brother presented that to Oxford University. You know, if you know anything about Oxford University, you remember they have a dictionary. I mean, if you want to be legit, you go to Oxford, and, you know, if you have an idea new. So I just want to thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for your wealth of knowledge. It was a continuation. You know, I mean, it's just, your family is amazing. Like he told y'all, when you come to Orlando, you say the word Bracy. Most people in Orlando, when you say Bracy, they thinking of his son, the third. I mean, when we talk about generational wealth, he is generational wealth at his finest. Not to mention, before I let you go, one thing I forgot to say is your daughter, LaVon Bracy Davis, running for Florida House District 45. She's a lawyer and a senior director of communication programming at the brand new Dr. Phillips Center in the heart of downtown Orlando. So, I mean, and like I told y'all when I introed him, his son is named after him. The daughter's named after the wife. I mean, look at this history. Look at this generational wealth. So with that said, Reverend Bracy, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on Black Men Sundays.
Bless you.
Thank you. And with that said, thanks everybody. Black Men Sunday, we out of here. I appreciate you guys again.
It's a Black Man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate. It's a Black Man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate. It's a Black Man.